Imagine a quiet room at twilight. The world outside is busy, noisy, demanding. Friends are laughing, lovers are embracing, and social media floods you with curated happiness. And yet, here you are, sitting alone. Most people fear this moment. They see it as emptiness, as loneliness, as failure. But let me tell you a secret. The solitude you fear is actually a sanctuary, a hidden garden where the strongest, happiest versions of yourself are waiting to grow. In today's story, the storyteller will guide you through the journey of growing strong enough to be happy alone. We'll explore the heart, mind, and soul. We'll hear stories of people who discovered their inner strength in isolation. And by the end, you'll understand being alone is not a punishment. It is a path to freedom, clarity, and self-love. The journey begins now. Chapter 1. The Mirror of Solitude. There's a moment in life when the world falls silent. No notifications. No urgent messages. No demands, no schedules, no people. Just you and a quiet room. Perhaps it is evening. Perhaps it is early morning. Perhaps it is a moment after a long day when the sun dips low and shadows grow long. Most people fear this moment. They see it as loneliness, as emptiness, as a void to be filled. But, my friend, this quiet is not your enemy. It is a mirror, and the reflection it offers may be the most important you will ever encounter. The first meeting. Amina had always avoided being alone. She thrived in the presence of others, friends, colleagues, acquaintances. She loved laughter, conversation, connection. But the moment she was left alone, her mind grew restless. Anxiety rose like an invisible tide, pulling her under a question she never asked in the company of others. Am I enough? Am I interesting? Will someone notice me? One evening, her friends were away. The apartment, usually filled with noise, was eerily quiet. At first, she tried to ignore it. She turned on music, scrolled through her phone, watched random videos, anything to prevent the silence from settling over her. But slowly, inevitably, the quiet seeped in, and then something remarkable happened. Amina noticed her own breathing, steady yet uncertain. She noticed a subtle tension in her shoulders, the tightness around her chest, the fluttering in her stomach. For the first time, she was forced to face herself. Not her friends, not her work, not the outside world, but her. The mirror of solitude does not lie. It does not show you what others want to see. It shows the raw, unedited self, the part of you that is honest, vulnerable, and real, the uncomfortable truth. When we spend all our time seeking approval or validation from others, we rarely get to know ourselves. We wear masks, smiles, laughter, politeness, charm. In company, these masks feel natural. In solitude, they fall away. Amina felt naked in the quiet. She confronted feelings she had buried long ago. Fears of inadequacy, longings unfulfilled, mistakes unacknowledged. For hours, she sat there listening to herself. It was uncomfortable, painful even, but there was beauty in that discomfort. Because the mirror of solitude is not meant to punish you. It is meant to awaken you. It teaches you the first lesson in strength. You cannot be happy alone if you do not know yourself. The hidden gifts of reflection. As the night deepened, Amina began to notice things she had never observed in the constant noise of life. She realized she had ideas she had never written down. She realized she had dreams she had never acted upon. She realized she had strengths she had never tested. Solitude forced her attention inward, toward the fertile soil of her own mind. And as she sat there, alone yet alive, she discovered a strange sensation, a sense of freedom. She did not need anyone to validate her worth. She did not need anyone to define her happiness. The reflection staring back at her, raw and imperfect, was enough. Stories of others. Amina's journey is not unique. Across time and space, people have discovered strength in solitude. Consider Omar, a young man who had been in a series of relationships that left him dependent on love from others. When his last relationship ended, he was forced into weeks of isolation. At first, he despaired. He wandered through empty rooms, feeling the weight of absence pressing against him. But slowly, he began to hear the whispers of his own thoughts. He remembered passions he had abandoned. He wrote letters to himself, not anyone else. He exercised discipline in his routines, not because anyone asked him to, but because he chose to honor himself. Months later, Omar emerged stronger, calmer, and profoundly aware of his own worth. Alone, he had discovered a depth of happiness no relationship could provide. The mirror as teacher. Solitude is not simply being alone. It is learning to see yourself without distraction. The mirror of solitude teaches patience, reflection, and honesty. It forces you to ask difficult questions. Who am I when no one is watching? What do I truly enjoy? What fears have I been hiding from myself? Can I sit in my own presence without discomfort? These questions are not easy to answer, but they are necessary. Because until you can answer them, you cannot grow strong enough to be truly content alone. Embracing the silence. Amina realized that the first step toward happiness alone is to embrace the silence. She began to see quiet not as emptiness, but as space for growth. She started small, 5 minutes of focused breathing, a short walk alone, journaling her thoughts without judgment. Each act of solitude became a brick in the foundation of her inner strength. She was no longer fleeing the silence. She was dancing with it, learning its rhythms, understanding its lessons. The quiet is where courage is born. The quiet is where clarity takes root. The quiet is where you discover your own heartbeat, and in that heartbeat lies your power. Lesson from the mirror. The mirror of solitude teaches 3 profound lessons. 1. Honesty with yourself. In solitude, you cannot hide from your thoughts or emotions. You must face them directly, with courage and compassion. 2. Independence of happiness. Your contentment does not need to come from others. When you nurture your own soul, happiness becomes self-sufficient. 3. Strength and vulnerability. Being alone reveals your vulnerabilities, but embracing them transforms weakness into resilience. These lessons, once understood, form the bedrock of inner strength. They are the silent gifts of time spent with yourself, gifts that the noisy world rarely offers. The first steps toward strength. If you wish to grow strong enough to be happy alone, begin with reflection. Set aside time each day to meet yourself without distraction. Observe your thoughts, feelings, and reactions. Ask the difficult questions. Sit with the discomfort. Write it down. Breathe it out. Let it pass through you. Amina's journey shows us that this is not an overnight transformation. It is gradual, layered, and tender. Some days, the mirror will reveal beauty. Other days, it will reveal flaws. Both are equally important. Both teach resilience. The quiet victory. By the end of her first week of intentional solitude, Amina noticed subtle changes. She no longer reached for her phone at the first moment of quiet. She no longer sought constant validation. She felt a sense of calm, an internal anchor. The mirror no longer reflected fear. It reflected strength, potential, and self-respect. This is the first victory in the journey toward being happy alone. The mirror has taught her a lesson the world cannot, that she is whole, capable, and worthy on her own. Reflection for the listener. So, dear listener to the storyteller, take a moment now. Close your eyes. Imagine a quiet room, empty but full of possibilities. Listen to your heartbeat. Notice your breath. Ask yourself the questions the world rarely allows you to ask. Who am I without distraction? What do I truly value? Can I sit with myself and be content? The answers may surprise you. They may challenge you. They may even frighten you. But they will also begin the process of growth. The mirror of solitude does not give easy answers. It does not offer comfort. It offers truth. And truth, my friend, is the first step toward strength, independence, and happiness alone. In this chapter, we learned solitude is not emptiness. It is a mirror reflecting your true self. Facing yourself in silence is uncomfortable, but necessary for growth. Happiness does not depend on others. It is nurtured from within. Strength begins in reflection, honesty, and acceptance of vulnerability. The first steps toward being happy alone are small, intentional acts of self-reflection and care. Chapter 2, Building Walls That Protect, Not Isolate. There's a quiet power in boundaries, a gentle strength in saying no, a hidden freedom in preserving your energy. And yet, many people fear the very idea of walls. They imagine walls as barriers to love, friendship, or opportunity. They imagine isolation, loneliness, rejection. But My friend, walls are not prisons. Walls are protection. Walls are the scaffolding of your inner growth. They allow you to flourish without interference, to nurture yourself without distraction, to honor your own space and needs. The story of Rafi. Rafi was a young man who had spent his entire life trying to please everyone. Every request was met with a yes. Every invitation, a sure. Every expectation, I'll do it. On the outside, he seemed content. People liked him. He was dependable. He was charming. But inside, he felt hollow, drained, and perpetually anxious. He had no time for himself, no space to think, to create, or even to rest. One day, a mentor noticed the exhaustion in his eyes. He asked, Rafi, who do you please when you please everyone? Rafi paused. He didn't have an answer because he had never considered himself in the equation. The mentor smiled gently and said, It's time to build walls, not to shut the world out, but to protect yourself, to create space for who you really are. The first wall, saying no. Building walls begins with one word, no. No is not rudeness. No is not selfishness. No is an acknowledgement of your own limits and a declaration of your own worth. Rafi started small. He declined invitations when he truly needed rest. He said no to tasks that were beyond his responsibility. At first, the word felt heavy, uncomfortable, almost forbidden. But slowly, he discovered that each no was a brick in the wall of his independence. Walls, when built with intention, do not isolate you. They create freedom. They give you the ability to focus on what truly matters. They protect the garden of your mind from the weeds of unnecessary demands. The freedom within boundaries. Boundaries are a paradox. They may appear as restriction, but they are actually liberation. They allow your time, energy, and attention to be spent where it truly counts, on your growth, your happiness, your passions. Consider Sarah, a young artist. She constantly felt pulled in all directions by friends, family, and work obligations. Her creativity suffered. Her mental health faltered. One day, she began to build walls. She limited social media scrolling. She dedicated hours to painting alone. She refused meetings that did not serve her goals. At first, guilt gnawed at her. She feared disappointing others. But soon, she realized the walls she built did not push people away. They allowed her to be fully present with those she chose to share her energy with. Walls are not fences that separate you from the world. They are frameworks that support your growth. They are the invisible lines between depletion and empowerment, the inner dialogue of strength. Building protective walls requires inner work. It is not enough to physically say no. You must train your mind to understand why you are saying it. Rafi would remind himself each morning, I am allowed to protect my energy. I am allowed to prioritize myself. Saying no is not betrayal. It is respect of my own life. The inner dialogue becomes a shield. It strengthens the foundation of your walls. Every time you honor your own needs, your confidence grows. Every time you resist external pressure, your independence is reinforced. Walls are not isolation. Many fear that boundaries mean loneliness. But walls do not equal isolation. They equal choice. You may choose to spend time alone, not because you're forced, but because you desire it. You may choose the company of those who elevate you, and distance yourself from those who drain you. Rafi's friends initially questioned his newfound independence. Why don't you come out anymore? They asked. Rafi smiled and replied, Because I need to be whole with myself first. When I am, I can be fully with others. The walls he built did not push people away. They allowed him to connect more meaningfully with those who truly mattered. The garden analogy, think of your life as a garden. Without boundaries, the weeds of distraction, obligation, and people-pleasing overtake the soil. Without walls, your flowers never get enough sunlight, your roots never have room to expand, and your growth is stunted. Walls are the fences that protect the garden. They do not confine the flowers. They protect them. They allow each seed of potential to flourish into full bloom. Rafi, Sarah, and countless others discover that strength in solitude is nurtured by these protective walls. The walls do not isolate, they cultivate, building emotional walls. Physical boundaries are important, but emotional walls are even more critical. They involve saying no to guilt that pressures you into unnecessary obligations, refusing to absorb other people's negativity as your own, protecting your mental space from toxic relationships, choosing solitude when needed without shame. These emotional walls create resilience. They give you the capacity to stand firm in your own presence. And most importantly, they prepare you to be happy alone, not lonely, not empty, but content, self reliant, and empowered. The practice of daily protection. Building walls is not a one time event, it is a daily practice. Every morning, Rafi would visualize his boundaries as invisible walls surrounding him. He would check his schedule and priorities, deciding what aligned with his growth and what did not. Each no reinforced the walls. Each intentional choice strengthened them. Even small acts, turning off notifications, taking a walk alone, dedicating time to a hobby, were bricks in a fortress of his independence. The paradox of true strength. True strength is paradoxical. It allows connection while protecting solitude. It allows love while preserving independence. It allows joy while keeping integrity intact. The walls you build are not barriers to the world. They are the foundation of self-respect, the framework of inner happiness, and the path to thriving alone. Reflection for the listener. Take a moment now. Dear listener of the storyteller, reflect on your own life. Ask yourself, where do I need walls to protect my energy? Where have I sacrificed my own growth for comfort or approval of others? How can I honor myself through intentional boundaries? The answers may feel uncomfortable. They may challenge your habits. But they will also begin the transformation toward a life where solitude is not feared, but embraced, and where happiness does not depend on anyone else. Chapter 3, Dancing with Your Own Shadows. Every person carries shadows. Not the kind cast by the sun, but the invisible kind that lurk inside your mind. Fears, regrets, insecurities, doubts. Shadows are uncomfortable. Shadows are frightening. Most people try to avoid them, to hide them under layers of distraction, noise, or constant company. But shadows are not your enemies. Shadows are teachers. Shadows, when acknowledged and embraced, reveal your courage, resilience, and potential. They are the mirrors of your soul, showing you what you have avoided for too long. The journey to being strong enough to be happy alone cannot skip this chapter. You must dance with your own shadows. The story of Layla. Layla was a painter who filled her life with friends, parties, and endless noise. She sought approval in every brushstroke, in every smile she shared, in every word she spoke. She avoided her own darkness. She avoided her doubts. She avoided the quiet where her insecurities lived. But life, as it often does, forced her into solitude. A sudden move, a broken relationship, and a quiet apartment left her with nothing but herself. The first night, she sat in darkness, staring at her blank canvas, paralyzed by fear. The shadows came swiftly. Memories of mistakes she had made, words she had said or left unsaid, dreams she had abandoned, and for the first time, she had nowhere to hide. The fear of facing yourself. It is natural to fear your own shadows. They show you what you have ignored, what you have suppressed, and what you have refused to acknowledge. For Layla, these shadows whispered, "You are not good enough. You will fail again. You are unworthy of love or success." At first, she resisted. She wanted to flee. She wanted to distract herself. But in every silent corner, the shadows followed her. They would not leave until she faced them. The first dance. To survive the shadows, Layla realized she must move with them, not against them. She began small. She picked up her brush, not to paint perfection, but to paint her fear. She sketched her doubts. She drew her failures. She painted the parts of herself she had always hidden. This was her first dance with the shadows. It was awkward, uncomfortable, and even painful, but each stroke was liberation. Each color she laid down was a release. The shadows began to shift, no longer enemies, but partners in a slow, transformative dance. Shadows as teachers. Dancing with your own shadows teaches 3 profound lessons. 1. Courage. To acknowledge your fears is to step into bravery. Each time you face your inner darkness, you grow stronger. 2. Self-compassion. Shadows remind you of your imperfections, but embracing them teaches kindness toward yourself. 3. Clarity. Shadows illuminate your hidden desires, unspoken needs, and true values. When you see them clearly, you understand who you are and what you want. Layla realized that every shadow she feared was a doorway to her growth. The fears that once paralyzed her became stepping stones to her independence. The quiet power of solitude. Solitude is the ballroom where this dance happens. Without the noise of the world, the distractions of others, or the pressure of expectations, you are free to move with your shadows. The silence allows introspection. The quiet gives courage to confront what you have avoided. Layla found that in these moments of solitude, she discovered her voice, her creativity, and her inner strength. The shadows were still present, but they no longer controlled her. She led the dance. Stories of others. Layla's journey is echoed in countless lives. Omar, after a painful breakup, confronted years of insecurity and self-doubt during weeks of isolation. He journaled his fears and dreams, learning that his shadows were maps pointing towards self-discovery. Amina, from Chapter 1, after facing the discomfort of solitude, encountered her own hidden anger, jealousy, and regrets. By acknowledging them, she learned to forgive herself and reclaim her peace. In every case, those who grow strong enough to be happy alone do so by embracing their shadows, not avoiding them. Techniques for dancing with shadows. The process is not easy, but it is rewarding. Here are some ways to embrace your shadows. 1. Journaling. Write down your fears, regrets, and insecurities without judgment. Observe them. Reflect on their origins. 2. Creative expression. Draw, paint, write poetry, or create music to externalize your inner darkness. 3. Meditation and mindfulness. Sit in silence and watch your thoughts. Observe your shadows without trying to change them. 4. Dialogue with self. Speak kindly to yourself, acknowledging your fears while reaffirming your worth. 5. Gradual exposure. Face small fears first. Each step strengthens your courage to face deeper shadows. Through these practices, solitude becomes an ally, not a prison. Shadows become guides, not threats. The transformation. After months of dancing with her shadows, Layla noticed profound changes. Her creativity blossomed in ways she never imagined. She became less dependent on external validation. She experienced a deep sense of inner peace, even in moments of discomfort. She realized happiness alone was not only possible, but abundant. The shadows did not vanish. They never do, but they no longer dictated her mood, her choices, or her self-worth. She had learned to move with them, not against them. Dear listener to the storyteller, consider your own shadows. What fears, regrets, or insecurities have you avoided? What parts of yourself have you hidden from your own eyes? The first step is acknowledgement. The second is acceptance. And the third is action, dancing with these shadows through reflection, expression, and courage. Remember, happiness alone is not the absence of shadows. It is the ability to coexist with them, to grow through them, and to lead your own life despite them. Chapter 4, The Garden of Self-Love. Imagine a garden at dawn. The air is crisp. Dew clings to each leaf. The soil is soft, fertile, and waiting. This garden does not grow on its own. It requires patience, care, and attention. Every seed must be planted with intention. Every weed removed with diligence. Every drop of water measured with love. Your heart is this garden. Your self-love is the soil. Your boundaries are the fences. And your choices are the seeds. To grow strong enough to be happy alone, you must tend this garden daily. You must learn to cultivate yourself with care, respect, and devotion. The story of Armin. Armin spent years chasing happiness outside himself. He believed that if he found the right partner, the right friends, the right circumstances, his life would finally feel complete. He pursued approval, validation, and recognition relentlessly. But no matter how much he achieved or how many people he impressed, a hollowness lingered. Armin realized that all of his relationships were mirrors reflecting what he could not yet give himself: love, acceptance, and peace. One quiet evening, after a particularly draining day, Armin sat alone in his apartment. The city outside buzzed with life, but inside, there was only him. And for the first time, he asked, What if I could be happy alone? That single question became the seed that would grow into a garden of self love. Planting the seeds. To cultivate a garden, you must first plant seeds. In your life, these seeds are small acts of self respect and care. Allowing yourself to rest without guilt. Pursuing hobbies that bring joy. Speaking kindly to yourself, even when you make mistakes. Spending time reflecting on your values and desires. Honoring your feelings without judgment. Armin started with small steps. He wrote in a journal each morning, noting one thing he loved about himself. He spent time painting again, a hobby he had abandoned for years. He exercised not to impress anyone, but to honor his body. Each action was a seed planted in the soil of his heart. At first, the growth was subtle, almost invisible, but the soil was fertile, and with care, it began to flourish. Removing the weeds. Just as gardens of weeds, our lives are often overrun with negativity, comparison, and self-doubt. These weeds can choke the growth of self-love if left unchecked. Armin noticed the weeds in his life, constantly comparing himself to others, seeking approval for every decision, lingering in past mistakes or regrets, listening to negative voices that doubted his worth. He made a conscious choice to remove these weeds. He unfollowed social media accounts that made him feel inadequate. He refused to dwell on what others thought of him. He forgave himself for past mistakes. Slowly, the weeds lost their grip, making room for flowers of self-respect and contentment to bloom. Watering the garden daily. Self-love is not a one-time event. It requires daily nourishment, just like a garden requires water. Armin created rituals to water his inner garden. Meditation in the morning to set intentions for the day. Reading books that inspired growth and understanding. Walking in nature to reconnect with himself. Celebrating small achievements without needing external recognition. These simple, consistent acts strengthened his inner soil. Each drop of water reinforces confidence, resilience, and contentment. Over time, his garden became vibrant and alive, a sanctuary that no external circumstance could destroy. The flowers of self-compassion. As the garden grew, flowers began to bloom. In the garden of self-love, these flowers represent compassion, kindness toward yourself, even when you fail. Gratitude, appreciation for who you are and what you have. Joy, the ability to find happiness in your own presence. Resilience, the capacity to recover from difficulties without losing your sense of self. Armin discovered that these flowers were not accidental. They grew from consistent care, attention, and respect for himself. He realized that happiness alone was not about avoiding pain, but about nurturing the strength to thrive despite it. Lessons from the garden. The garden of self-love teaches several truths. 1. You are responsible for your own happiness. No one else can cultivate for you. 2. Growth requires patience. Flowers do not bloom overnight, and self-love takes time. 3. Neglect leads to decay. Ignoring your needs and emotions allows weeds to overrun your spirit. 4. Attention creates flourishing. Consistent care, reflection, and positive action allow you to thrive. 5. Solitude is a fertile space. Being alone gives your inner garden room to grow. Armin's journey demonstrates that the strongest, happiest individuals are those who have tended their inner gardens with care, intentionally and persistently. The role of solitude. Solitude is not empty. It is full of opportunity, reflection, and growth. When you spend time alone, you allow your garden to flourish undisturbed. You become attuned to your needs, your desires, and your strengths. Armin found that solitude was no longer a punishment. It was a gift, a sacred space where he could nurture himself, confront his fears, and celebrate his victories. In solitude, he discovered freedom. Freedom from comparison, from dependency, from fear of judgment. Cultivating joy alone. True happiness alone is not about distraction. It is about presence. It is about finding joy in your own company and embracing your own life fully. Armin started small. Morning coffee enjoyed in silence, savoring the aroma and warmth. Reading a few pages of a book without rush or interruption. Listening to music and allowing himself to feel deeply. These moments, seemingly trivial, became the pillars of his contentment. He realized that he did not need validation from others to feel complete. His inner garden was thriving, beautiful, and enough. Dear listener, the storyteller, take a moment and imagine your own garden. What seeds are you planting today? What weeds need removal? What daily acts nourish your soul? The garden of self-love is not a destination. It is a journey. It requires attention, patience, and devotion. But the reward is profound, a life where happiness does not depend on anyone else, where you are content in your own presence, and where you are strong enough to thrive alone. Chapter 5. The Strength to Thrive, Not Just Survive. Most people believe that surviving alone is enough. They think that if they can endure solitude, resist loneliness, and withstand silence, they are strong. But surviving alone is merely the first step. True strength lies in thriving alone, living fully, joyfully, and purposefully without dependence on anyone else for validation or happiness. Thriving alone requires more than endurance. It requires courage, self-awareness, and the ability to cultivate your own joy. It requires turning solitude into opportunity, challenges into growth, and silence into clarity. The story of Nadia. Nadia had always been dependent on others for her happiness. She sought approval, companionship, and reassurance constantly. Her life felt like a delicate balance, always teetering between contentment and anxiety. When she found herself alone after a life change, she was terrified. The first weeks were difficult. The silence was deafening, and the absence of companionship felt like emptiness. Nadia realized that surviving alone was exhausting but necessary. It required her to confront her fears, regulate her emotions, and create routines that supported her well-being. But she soon discovered something extraordinary. In solitude, she had the freedom to be herself fully. She could pursue her passions, make decisions without compromise, and explore her dreams without interruption. She was no longer surviving. She was beginning to thrive. Thriving begins with self-trust. To thrive alone, you must trust yourself. This means believing in your decisions, honoring your intuition, and relying on your own judgment. When you trust yourself, solitude becomes empowering rather than frightening. Nadia started by making small choices independently, deciding how to spend her weekends without seeking approval, planning meals, workouts, and hobbies according to her preferences, setting goals and taking action without waiting for encouragement. Each decision reinforced her self-trust. Each success, no matter how small, strengthened her confidence. She realized that her own presence was not a limitation. It was a source of power. Finding joy in your own company. Thriving alone is not about filling time. It is about creating meaning and joy. It is about discovering the richness of your own company and embracing experiences without dependency. Nadia began exploring activities she had ignored while seeking others' approval, reading books that inspired her mind and soul, walking through the city alone, observing life with curiosity, learning new skills she had always dreamed of mastering. These acts of self-discovery transformed solitude from a state of lack into a canvas of opportunity. Each moment alone became an invitation to explore, grow, and delight in her own presence. The power of purpose. Surviving alone is passive. Thriving alone is active. Thriving requires purpose. You must cultivate goals, passions, and routines that give your life direction. Nadia created a vision for her life. Personal growth through learning and reflection. Physical well-being through exercise and mindful eating. Emotional health through journaling, meditation, and creative expression. With purpose guiding her actions, solitude was no longer threatening. It became a space for achievement, fulfillment, and self-mastery. The more she aligned her actions with her purpose, the stronger and happier she became. Resilience in the face of challenges. Thriving alone does not mean life becomes easy. Challenges, failures, and setbacks will still arise. But when you are strong enough to thrive alone, you face these difficulties with resilience. You do not crumble under adversity, nor do you rely on others to sustain your emotional balance. Nadia faced moments of doubt, moments of sadness, and moments when loneliness whispered in her ear. But she learned to breathe through discomfort, reframe challenges as opportunities for growth, seek inspiration within herself rather than outside. This resilience is the hallmark of strength. It transforms solitude from a passive state into an active journey of empowerment, independence, and connection. Thriving alone does not mean rejecting others. It means cultivating independence first, so that relationships become choices rather than dependencies. Nadia discovered that her interactions with friends and loved ones improved once she was self sufficient. She could give without expecting, love without needing validation, and connect without fear of loss. Her happiness was not tethered to anyone else, and this freedom made her relationships deeper and more genuine. The joy of being fully present. One of the greatest gifts of thriving alone is presence. When you are content with yourself, you can be fully present in every moment. You notice the colors of the sunrise, the rhythm of your breath, the textures and flavors of life. Nadia practiced mindfulness daily, savoring meals without distraction, walking in nature with full attention on surroundings, appreciating small victories and simple pleasures. These practices reinforce her happiness, proving that joy is not dependent on external sources, but is cultivated internally. Stories of others. Across countless lives, those who thrive alone share common qualities. Omar, from earlier chapters, found that his independence allowed him to travel, create, and pursue passions without compromise. Layla, who danced with her shadows, discovered that embracing her fears enabled her to live authentically and courageously. Armin, from chapter 4, nurtured his inner garden and became confident, self-reliant, and joyful in solitude. Thriving alone is a combination of self-trust, resilience, purpose, joy, and presence. It is a practice, not a state. It is a journey, not a destination. Dear listener of the Storyteller, reflect on your own life. Are you merely surviving your solitude, or are you thriving in it? Ask yourself, how can I cultivate purpose in my days alone? What practices bring me joy and growth? How can I build resilience to face challenges independently? In what ways can I nurture my independence while maintaining meaningful connections? The answers to these questions guide you from mere survival to thriving. Solitude becomes a platform for empowerment, not a cage of limitation. Thriving alone is liberation. When you thrive alone, you are free. Free from dependence, free from comparison, free from fear of judgment. You no longer wait for external validation. You create your own. You no longer seek fulfillment from others. You cultivate it within. This freedom is the essence of strength. It is not loud or boastful. It is quiet, steady, and unshakable. Those who achieve it are unbreakable in their happiness because it originates from within. As we reach the end of this journey, dear listener of the Storyteller, remember this. Life alone is not a void to be feared. It is a sanctuary, a classroom, and a garden all at once. You have learned to face the mirror of solitude, to build protective walls, to dance with your shadows, to cultivate a garden of self-love, and to thrive rather than merely survive. Each step was a layer of strength, a brick in your foundation, a seed in your inner garden. Happiness alone is not a reward. It is a practice, a conscious choice, a commitment to yourself. By nurturing your inner world, you create a life of resilience, joy, and freedom. As you step forward from this moment, carry these lessons with you. Embrace solitude as an ally, not an enemy. Build boundaries that protect and empower, not isolate. Dance with your shadows to uncover your courage. Tend your inner garden with care, love, and intention. Thrive in your own presence, creating purpose, joy, and resilience. The world may be loud, chaotic, and demanding, but within you lies a sanctuary that no one can take away. A sanctuary where your happiness, your strength, and your contentment are entirely your own. So, take a deep breath, smile at your reflection, and say, I am enough. I am strong. I am whole. Thank you for joining the Storyteller today. If this journey inspired you, remember to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that nurture your mind, heart, and soul.